Hey folks, so this is day 9 of basic design. It's a relatively straightforward day in that it's easy to talk about, though it takes the whole class to engage in. So it'll probably be kind of a short video. But basically, day 9 is their first long project that they've turned in. I've mentioned it's a black and white squares project. In this particular composition, they're trying to seek balance. So this is the second composition they've made, and they've been taking this project along in a variety of iterations to get at different things like unity and variety, as I've discussed before. And ultimately, what they're seeking is a holistic composition made from these diverse elements. And it's interesting to talk about this. I like to discuss with the students what's the difference? What is a set of diverse things? How does that differ from a holistic composition where you're trying to get everything to serve a whole versus be its own unique individual compared to another thing that are paired together? Um, it's really interesting to hear their responses, how some of them having more freedom and having to scrap things they liked, in the sense of the writing trope "kill your darlings" is very pertinent in this situation. Um, and then we talk about the critiques and why in an art class isn't it the practice, like they, at the end of the day, they're all looking at their work and determining it. And in this one, we'd like to, because we're seeking balance, it was again very hard for these students to feel that naturally, to feel the balance. In the past, I find this especially with dancers, they can just like see it, they can just feel, no, that's off, it's not quite balanced. And I think it has a lot to do with their embodied experience. But they needed, like when we're critiquing, I have them look at all four orientations because they're very abstract compositions. So they'll move it here and then they'll rotate it. And I can't do that, but you know what I mean. All four of the orientations so they can feel and see it. And the students really start getting it then when they go over and over. They're in groups of 5. So they see this like, 20 times, 20 times going through, and they're feeling it and they get a sense, oh, this is what we mean by balance, how it's like stable, inviting, how people want to look at it, and it becomes a finished whole where you're not like, in the best case scenarios, you see some of the compositions that aren't as successful. I'll do things like cover one side and look at like just this part, how it's much better, it's much more balanced, move the hand, and then they see it, and they can feel it. So much of it is about feeling. But then, I always ask the question, like, why do we do it this way? Why don't you just get my feedback? Why do I have you guys give feedback to each other? Especially with a class of 18, I break it up into groups because otherwise it's really slow and boring and I lose their attention. Um, but you might think like, what are these other students? What do their opinions matter? Um, at the end of the day, Greg's the one who gives the grade. So why don't I just hear his opinion? And so we talk about that. I like to use the example of another designed thing in the room, to get at this, to help you folks understand a little bit of like, what do I mean? Um, every single designed object is like telling you a story. Uh, so much so that I think it's Lupton. Lupton wrote a book called Design is Storytelling, which I disagree with. Design is like storytelling, but every finished design, you can look at it and you can infer from it a series of events that led to its creation, as in you can listen to the story about it. So I like to point out in the classroom the fire extinguisher. And I ask the students, like, why does that exist? Why is it here? Like, well, fires exist. You need to put fires out. Perfect. So it exists to extinguish fires. And why do human beings want to extinguish fires? Well, because they're dangerous. Perfect. Okay. Why is there one in this room? Well, there could be a fire in here. Is this a room that's prone to fires? Well, no, but in the worst case scenario, if there is a fire, we want to put it out. Okay, so even though this room has nothing that should generate a fire, there might be a fire, and so we should be prepared. That's like, is that Smokey the Bear? Or only you can prevent forest fires. That's Smokey the Bear. Be prepared. Is G.I. Joe? Something like that. Whatever. The 90s cartoons, they've got all your good advice. Life advice from 90s cartoons. That's where you should get it. Um, Not YouTube. Come on. G.I. Joe, the Captain Planet. That one's got all the life advice. So you've got like, we've got the fire extinguisher. We need to to put out fires, and we want to be prepared in worst case scenarios. Why? Well, fires are bad. Well, why? They're dangerous to human beings. Human beings could die. It's a classroom, it's a school. It wants to avoid lawsuits. It doesn't want to have all the expenses. It doesn't want to, its equipment ruined. Hopefully, it gets to some place where it's like, well, people design fire extinguishers because they realize that fires can kill people and people are valuable. Um, you can determine to what degree you think human beings are valuable. Hopefully, it's high up there. But if we're giving the designer the most grace, sure, that particular designer of that particular fire extinguisher might have been doing it for money. But part of the reason people are even willing to pay money is because most human beings have a value for other human beings. And so my college values students, it values me, it wants this thing in the classroom so that we can stop this thing that could really injure and hurt human beings. And then we talk about, so that's why they exist. Why is it where it is? And why does it have the characteristics that it does have? And why is it red? All of these things. We talk about how it's trying to be visible. It's trying to be always visible. It's trying to be innocuous yet present so that in an emergency, someone can grab it. And then I like to talk about, there's even one other little detail on there. There's a little blue tag. What's on that? Someone goes and looks at it and it's like, oh, it says, inspected, blah, blah, blah. It's like, not only do we have this fire extinguisher that exists to serve these purposes, it's painted in a manner and displayed in a manner that then its firefighting capabilities are readily accessible to as many people as reasonably possible. Then on top of that, we've got a whole crew of people who exist going around inspecting on a regular basis to make sure that they're up to date. All of this after the fact that there hasn't been a fire at Hope in a long time. There was a major fire that destroyed a building some 30 years ago. But it's very rare. And yet we design all of those systems. And I think the proper answer, as in I think most likely, it's because we value human beings. All of this exists. So it's you can look at the thing and you can deduce basically what the values that led to that object being designed were. And as they take the class, they get more experience in this and they're able to see more nuanced, where are more things like this and why is this happening? So then I asked them to turn that on the critique. Why do we have the critique designed the way we do? We've already talked about the wall as context. We've talked about human beings, their physiology and psychology as audience. Okay, why does your professor break you up into groups so that you can go, instead of just standing there and giving you his opinion down the line? And it's really nice and interesting to hear them realize that them forming opinions and not just being told by an authority figure what is good is one of the key components. They're learning all kinds of things. This is a very practical way to do it because it helps them learn to speak up. It helps them speak more. It helps them learn to formulate their own opinions, to listen to others, to make friends. Honestly, more and more they need more opportunities to talk to each other. Helps them get over shyness. All these different things. It does a lot, but it also helps them learn that creative process. It's not good to just create and refine and not know how to also be a test subject yourself, especially as you get out of a school setting. So much of the role of a creative is to critique themselves. Obviously, it's best if you have some kind of community, but that's very difficult. And sometimes it means, waiting a month or a couple weeks before you can get someone to come and visit your studio and look at what you're doing. So this notion of getting good at critiquing and analyzing and stepping back outside yourself and being able to assess work independently of whether you made it or not is a key skill that they need to learn. And they need to learn by doing it. You can't just tell them they need to do it. They need to actually do it. They need to see these things and feel how the visual is impacting them to understand what's going on. So my class is like a basic, not only in design principles and the creative practice, but it's in learning to interpret the world around them and open them up to all kinds of things that are designed around them and are affecting them in ways that are not even they don't realize cognitively, but it is working in multiple ways. So that's they turn in a project. They have finished the first long project, when we do this critique, but we use it as an opportunity to further emphasize. And then I like to finish up because at some point you always wonder, I mean, this obviously there's imposter syndrome as a academic, look it up, you'll see everyone feels it. So there's something encouraging to show students that I'm not the only one that thinks this way. If you take a look at the series I'm doing, if you're enjoying it, check out Elliot Earl's YouTube channel. He has a lot of videos that are shorter and punchier and aren't going into as much detail as what I'm doing, but it's talking about these same things. But I'll link it. One of the other things that I show in class, I begin class. This is a video we're going to watch over some period of time. Is Everything is a Remix by Kirby Ferguson. It's just wonderful. And I point out how so many of the things he has in that video, he's talking about what creativity is and how human beings are mimetic creatures who are remixing over and over. That further emphasizes everything that I'm teaching in my course. And I love that video. So that's it for today. It's a relatively light day in the sense of theory because it is mostly students critiquing. I'll see you later.